Hey and welcome back. So now that we have successfully downloaded and installed PRTG, it's time for us to do a little bit of an initial setup. And what I'm going to try and do is keep it as vendor neutral as possible. So whilst we'll be configuring all of these settings within PRTG, a lot of them will be mimicked across if you're using, other platforms like Nagios or Prometheus, Logic Monitor, Pulseway. We'll try and focus to the stuff that is not vendor specific. Because like I said in the last course, this isn't a PRTG tutorial, this is a tutorial on network monitoring and infrastructure monitoring, and it just so happens that we're using PRTG because it's a really great system. So as you can see, since our last video, we have installed it, and now what is all of a sudden happening, and what's happening is the probe, so that's like the auto discovery, has gone out and is already picking up things on my network. So it's going out and checking that I have internet connection and doing a bit of a round time test to see how long it takes to load a web page. It's found an AD server that I have on my environment. It's picking up using an 8.8.8 external DNS server. It's picked up my gateway and it's currently pinging that. And if we scroll down, it's also picked up a Linux machine as well. Now, because we're going to be going through and manually configuring these, I'm going to delete some of them. So I'm going to delete the DNS server as we'll go through and show how to set that one up later on. We'll delete the gateway, so that's the firewall that we want to configure later on, and we will delete the Linux machine here. And the rest, we'll also delete this subnet, and the rest we will keep. So this is pretty much just like a default kind of configuration. It's currently monitoring the probe device, which is the device we have PRTG installed on. It's checking that we have internet from this monitor. It's checking that we have DNS. As well as checking the core server is running. So now that we've gotten rid of those, what we're going to do is we're going to navigate over here, and we've got two initial alerts. So the first one being that we are currently using the default username and password, which is pretty insecure. So we're going to want to change the default password. So there we've got the login name. We can change that if we want, but I'm just going to leave it as is. The display name, the primary email, and we're going to specify a new password. So we have to put in the old one, and then we're going to specify a new one. We now just need to save that, which is this button here, save. So here we can see we have now created that administrator. Typically the best practices is to have named accounts, so all of your network administrators is having their own account. That way when someone leaves, for example, you're not having to reset the shared password every time, as well as it's better for things like multi-factor authentication and logging. But for now, for our demo, we're just going to stick with the one system administrator, which we've now changed the password. It's saying here that we're currently using HTTP and it wants us to switch to HTTPS. So if we click on that button, it should take us to the option that we can use HTTPS. So it's going to use a self-signed cert. If we were forwarding this from the internet, we'd want to kind of secure this down a bit more, but because we're just using it locally in our network, using a self-signed certificate is absolutely fine for this demo. So we'll click on that. It's going to restart the service there, and then we're going to be using HTTPS. So there we go, that one has refreshed. It's now giving us a warning about the self-signed certificate, but again, because this is demo, that's absolutely fine. And it's going to make us log back in with the new password we just specified. There we go. It wants to show us notifications, that's fine. So one thing I just want to add is I'd really recommend looking at setting up multi-factor authentication. No matter if you're using PRTG or any of the other products that we've spoke about throughout the course, multi-factor authentication for your administrators is almost a requirement these days. So I know a lot of them won't force you to set it up, but it's something you're probably going to want to go ahead and do to help protect your environment, especially if it's open to the internet. So let's just go through a little bit about PRTG here. So we've got under the devices tab, we've got the overview, and that's going to group all of your devices based on what they are. So you can group all your network infrastructure under network infrastructure, all of your Windows servers, your hypervisors, Linux machines, but you can also create specific groups as well. So for example, under local probe, we could right click and go add group. So you may group your devices by a site. So you might have a site Melbourne, another group called Sydney, another group called Brisbane. You may group them based on what they're doing or what data center they're in. It's really up to you. Moving on, all of these sensors can be found under sensors, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later on. We have the alarm section, so that's going to tell us currently there's one alarm to do with the DNS there. We have the ability to set up maps, we have reports, we have logging and tickets as well. But what we want to do now is go to setup, and we're going to go to notification templates. So here you can see this is really common for a network monitoring system. It's how it notifies you when there is a problem. So for example, if you're getting a warning from a server, if you're getting an error from the server, you can set up different notification templates. An example might be if something is a warning, it's going to email all your administrators. However, if it's something critical, then it's going to send an SMS or a push notification to your administrator alerting that this is a super high priority. As you can see at the moment, we've just got the primary email address set up and the notification templates there. So if there is an issue, it's going to email out to the administrators. It's going to send the first down and first up messages. It's got some details around how it's going to specify the subject, who it goes to, and you can add a lot more. Here you can see just how customizable this is under the notification sections there. If we go on up to maps, what we can do is we can set up, a type of dashboard. So you can set up maps, for example, a network map to show the different configuration of each of your sites, which is really handy, especially when you've got lots of complex configuration. You can set up a network map within PRTG, and that allows your administrators to jump in here and see what's connected. So you may have a firewall connected to a switch, connected to another switch, connected to all the hypervisor hosts. The dashboards are super easy to set up in PRTG, and also they're really good in most systems. So you can set up a dashboard to have your primary servers at the front and foremost. Under home, we have details like the license status, some details around yesterday's activity, a bit about their blog, creating maps, and some tutorials here around PRTG. We also up the top here have all the sensors and what's currently going on. So really, I would recommend if you are installing this, have a little bit of a play around. There's just so much that you can do within a network monitoring system. But the main ones are setting up your devices, setting up your sensors, setting up your alarms, your notifications, and if possible, your network maps and reporting. You're also going to want to set up your ticketing. So whether you use the ticketing built into the network monitoring system, or you connect it to something like, some sort of help desk ticketing system, maybe ConnectWise Manage, or maybe, Halo PSA, something like that. Lastly, a really important part is we're going to want to be backing up our monitoring server, so backing up the virtual machine itself, so perhaps using something like Veeam, but then we're also going to want to be backing up the configuration. So the way that we do that within PRTG is we jump into setup, then we find the administrative tools section, and what we can do is we can save the current configuration in a zip file. So it's always really handy to be saving your configurations just in case there's a problem with the server and you have to go back and restore from a backup. But then we also want to be backing up the entire VM as well, just in case of any sort of incident. Perhaps there was a local disaster, perhaps we got hit with ransomware, then we can restore that entire virtual machine. The last thing I want to show you is just under setup here. We went down into auto update, and what you can do is you can set PRTG, and again this is similar for other products as well, set them to auto update, or you can control it more manually. So if you want to manually update your monitoring servers, you can do so, or if you want them to automatically update when there's a new update, you can do that as well. So there I've shown you some of the best practices for configuring a network monitoring server. This way, you're going to be able to create a robust network monitoring environment that's efficient, secure, and easy to manage. Thanks for joining me in this lesson. I look forward to jumping into our next one where we're going to start configuring some devices and show you how you can monitor them. Thanks for sticking with me. I'll see you there.